On a House subcommittee holding a hearing on the origins of COVID-19 yesterday. One witness slamming China for refusing to cooperate in international investigations. Watch.
We are primarily here because the Chinese government has done everything in its power to prevent the type of investigation into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic that is 3 years overdue and still urgently required. We are also here because there is more that we in the United States can and must do to push forward, even if China continues to stonewall.
Joining me now is Atlas Organization founder Jonathan D.T. Ward. Jonathan, you are the upcoming, by the way, the upcoming book. I'm excited about this, The Decisive Decade. There's the book cover. Congratulations. Got to get your take on what you heard yesterday in Washington as we finally are trying to get to the bottom of what happened in Wuhan. We want answers. Are we ever going to get them?
Thanks, Cheryl. As you know, the Communist Party of China is not going to be cooperative with this. I mean, having all lived through the pandemic, we saw that in real time. Their funneling of disinformation through international institutions like the World Health Organization, all of this, their refusal to cooperate with the United States, their suppression of their own scientists and journalists. I mean, we know the history, we all lived it. But I think when the hearings go into more depth, I mean, another thing that we should focus on is also the nature of their strategic thinking around the pandemic, both at the beginning and during it. One of the examples that there was a lot of talk at the time in the Communist Party about turning crisis into an opportunity. That's a phrase that they use often when it comes to international issues. How can they use that to advance their strategic power? And, here's an example from a Communist Party thinker that I included in The Decisive Decade. He says, with the globalization of the epidemic, Western countries' reliance on China's economy and markets will deepen. Europe may fall into an economic downturn under the blow of the epidemic. Unprecedented mutual needs and opportunities in China-EU economic cooperation will emerge. These developments will help break through the U.S. strategic blockade, all the while structurally reducing dependence on U.S. political and economic forces, and the U.S. economy will decline. So, I mean, they were thinking about this, I think very early on as part of their global strategy and global influence campaigns. And I think we want to understand that, too. I mean, how was the Communist Party really looking at the effects of this in their contest with the United States?
Using it to their advantage. Using it to their advantage.
Let's see some investigation into that,
economically,
too.
Globally, whether it's working with Ukraine, with Russia against Ukraine, whether it's attacking Taiwan. China is about a long game. Many say that the U.S. needs to be more about the long game and less about the short game. But it is what it is.
We sure do. That's
right. That's just a general kind of comment. China is denying these claims from billionaire investor Mark Mobius. He was on this show a week ago. I want you to listen to what he said about his investments in China and get your reaction.
I'm personally affected because I have an account with HSBC in Shanghai. I can't get my money out. The government is restricting the flow of money out of the country. So I would be very, very careful in investing in China. What we're doing is going into Hong Kong, which seems to be a little more open and able to get money in and out. But putting money into China, I think you have to be very, very careful.
What do you make of his comments?
Well, I think it's great that Mark Mobius said that. I mean, that takes some courage to say that. I think it's very important. I mean, you don't want to be putting money into China now. I think we understand that this is a bit of a trap. I mean, they use it to build up their own sort of strategic enterprises, their corporations, steal IP. You're not going to get the money out. I mean, that's really not how this works in the long run. And, at the end of the day, investors should be much, much more careful. I think people should be exiting now. And I think the other side of it is U.S. corporations, as Maria and I have talked about at great length, have gone way too deep into the China market, and they don't necessarily have a real exit strategy. So we're going to see a lot of American companies that basically become China stocks, and that's going to be very dangerous to shareholders. So this is becoming a shareholder capital problem. I mean, it's not just a problem for Washington, D.C. to have a global competition with Beijing. I mean, ultimately, it's going to be an economic contest that we have to win. Their own top leadership is now telling their companies to fight for the motherland. The golden shares, sort of initiative to have Communist Party board members and the ability to affect business decisions, and the fact that there's a massive amount of party strategic thinking behind how their companies are going to serve their grand strategy, whether that's the Belt and Road Made in China 2025, civil military fusion. I mean, they do this through their companies. And in the meantime, our companies, a good part of the time are playing for Team Beijing, and this is not good. We have to rectify that, bring our companies back to the right side of history.
Sure.
And yeah, I think investors should be looking for the exit in China.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
forget about the zero COVID
Right.
bounce. I mean, that may be short term, but once again, where does that really go? I mean, people are
Yeah,
taking
exactly.
on risk in a
I
very
agree with
big
you,
way.
Jonathan. I agree with you because, and we were talking about this before the segment began here on set, that look at what happened to Jack Ma. Look at what's happened to Jimmy Lai.
Right.
So when people come on business news shows and say that they think that China's a great opportunity, I think the question has to be asked, is that really worth it? And I think Mark Mobius's comment has really resonated, we found in the last week since he was on the program talking about that. Jonathan Ward, thank you very much. It was good to see you.